Hello everyone and welcome to Great Deltan. Today is going to be a layout update for spring of 2023, covering all the work that I've been doing since January at the beginning of this year. From July last year I was working on the stock, improving it all, adding all the features I wanted to every single piece and getting it up to the standard that I wanted to achieve across all of my fleet. This had initially planned to be taking about 1 month but overran by about 6 months. I had no idea how much I actually had to do, which is a bit annoying because I really wanted to get on the layout by the end of it and just get progressing. But at the end of January, beginning of February, I finally finished that stock project and I made a start on the first piece of scenery which was non-directly related. And that is this area here, which is the countryside cutting, which is based upon road in Northamptonshire. If you haven't seen the video of me making it, I'll quickly talk through what I've done here. I've started with using these Metcalfe retaining wall kits to line the tracks all the way up to the back here. They've been darkened down with some roof dirt paint from Railmatch, just airbrushed on to give it a more weathered feel, as the wall in real life is quite dirty from years of being exposed to diesels and steam. From there I have added these H-beams, which I got from a local model shop, and I've just cut them to size, cut them to length and painted them dark, and then they've been stuck to the sides of these walls, and then I've added all the sort of birdcage structure in that method. That's just been stuck using some super glue. From there I've ballasted all the gaps right up to the retaining walls. I've added some bushes, weathered it all to match this current track weathering, and then I've built up the landscape around it using some wood and plaster mould, and then I've added a small road at the back here, which is more or less a replica of what we have in real life in Northamptonshire. Now if we watch this ScotRail HST coming through the cutting, then we'll notice that it doesn't quite enter at the point you'd expect. It actually comes under the wall and doesn't follow this cutting. Now I've done that to hide the unrealistically tight curve there, and from most angles it just looks as if the tracks continue on in that direction to make it look a lot more broad and a lot less train setty. The illusion works well. You can very rarely see any of the trains going under the wall from any angles, and because it's curved, even from track level just here, you can't view directly into where the trains go under the wall. So I'm happy with how that illusion has turned out, and that is on both of these implants into the countryside. This is the new KMS Rail Tech in association with Dapol ScotRail Inter 7 City HST in Engage, which is quite a new addition. I initially had actually forgotten that I had ordered it. Back when I was doing my Dapol HST project, I pre-ordered it in the hopes that it would come out by the time that I'd finished collecting all the other HSTs, but it was severely delayed for various reasons. But it's here now, and it probably won't stay for long because it has no association with where I'm modelling. It was just ordered specifically for that project. It is a lovely HST, however the livery is very well applied, and you've got your standard Dapol Mark IIIs with the light bar readiness and the hunt couplings. I was able to acquire one of the extra fifth coaches, which are long gone on the website, which is handy. So I do have a 5-coach HST there, which not everybody has. So moving on, the next part I'm going to focus on is not actually the M1 as is pictured here. It's actually this area here from the M1 all the way down to that embankment at the back and the scenic break. If you can just sort of see that, you might have seen in the intro shot. The reason for that being is that I actually spilt a fair bit of plaster mould, static grass, paint, you name it, onto the baseboard here where the M1 is supposed to be situated when I was doing this countryside bit. So I thought to prevent that from getting any worse and to prevent it from getting anything spilt on when it's completely finished, it's best if I do this first. At least the area where the countryside meets the M1, as I don't want to ruin a nicely made scene with, you know, overspill, overspray, everything from there. So that's the next area we're going to be focusing on, is over here. The basis of this area is very similar to the cutting in the fact that it's just going to be mainly an embankment with a lot of unmaintained grassland. Same goes for over here. There'll be a little bit of farmland over here, and I might even model some sort of tram lines to make it look a bit more effective, but most of this is just going to be the same as over the far side, and the same sort of effects. I'll be using the same materials to build that. Initially I was just going to leave this as an open field, but I recently put a poll up on my Facebook page to ask my followers and people who follow my layout what they thought would be a good idea to put in this big open area. I put some options like a tennis club, a little housing estate, a BMX track, or a go-karting track, which was the overwhelmingly popular vote in the end. And I'm glad that won, because I actually do want to build a go-kart track here. It's always something that I've wanted to model. I don't know why, I just think it could be quite interesting. So I have drawn out a rough plan of where everything's going to go. That's going to be built soon, and that'll be probably the next thing. Once that's done, I can then finish the embankment around it and blend all the scenery in. So the plan is to have the track here, and then we'll have a little building where you'd expect people to get into their go-karting, I don't even want to call it, suits. A little seating area, there'll be some toilets, a snack bar, and then over here will be a car park. If I'm not wrong, I believe there is actually a BMX track or a go-karting track just south of the M1, where the Northampton Loop line crosses the motorway. So it's not entirely unrealistic. Obviously it's not going to follow the same track or anything, but hey ho, I think it will still work quite well, and it adds a bit of interest to the scene rather than just having plain old boring fields, which most of this sort of half of the layout is. Now over here I was originally going to build a small village or town scene on top of this, to hide the curve, and then you'd have the tracks emerging from either side of that. However, I've decided not to do that, and instead I will have a back scene here and a back scene here, and it's going to pretty much split the layout in half. You'll have this side of the layout, which will be a very rural countryside area with a lot of greenery and a lot of scenery, and then on this side will be a very urban scene. I'll tell you the plans for that in a minute, and then obviously we're going to be working our way down to the station. Reason for this is that I don't think I could have found a good way to blend the rural area into urban in such a small space. It's going to look ridiculous from one of the sides, so it's best just to break it up. And plus, not having anything on top of here means I can access the track for cleaning still. I could have obviously had a lift out section, but that would have just been a bit difficult to construct. It also allows me to sort of finish each side before I move on. So this side from that back scene all the way down to the back scene at the end there, where the cutting sort of disappears, is where the focus will be. Once this area over here is done, we will then move on to the actual M1, and that will complete this side. What I'm going to be modelling is the M1 motorway as it is currently at junction 15 southwards, which is the roadworks for the smart motorways. So you'll have all that purple trunking that goes under the concrete bollards, you'll have a ton of cones everywhere, and there'll be a lot of signage, and there's just a bit more interest and detail really to what your standard roadway is. So yeah, I'm looking forward to actually building that scene. I've got quite a few things from 3D Wagon Works on order, as you can't particularly buy things that I'm after ready to run. So that's Nick who runs that, and he's going to do me a few 3D prints for this scene, but that's in the future. So just quickly, I thought I may as well talk you through what I have planned for this side of the layout. Tracks will emerge over there in that tunnel portal there, and the one behind it, and immediately they will go through a heavily industrialised estate with a lot of low relief buildings and perhaps some retail. It's definitely going to be very urban, there's going to be no greenery. It's going to be very much like the town scene on my original Great Deltan Mark 1 layout, where you've got a few low relief scratch builds of sort of local stores which are within Northampton. That's the area I'm basing most of this layout off, and a lot of things will come. From there we come down here to where this road is. Let me just demonstrate what I mean. There'll be a road coming into here, and then all this will just be a wall or edge of a building or some offices, maybe low relief, and then this road will then come into a roundabout, and there'll be a junction off here which will slope up to the station. And that is where the last mega project will take place, is the station. I do plan on doing quite a good big scratch build on that, and it's going to take several months, but I'm going to be starting that next year. I thought I'd leave the grand finale until the end, and then that's pretty much the layout complete. And I say that with what I have in mind for the future, which I shall explain in a couple of moments. But that is the basis of the next few months and where I'm heading with this layout, all the plans, and by the end of it, I'm hoping I'm going to have a rather good looking layout. So this is the part of the layout update where I usually talk about all the new additions that have been to the stock fleet, but today it's actually quite the opposite. What you're looking at in front of you is everything that I own in terms of stock. I've sold about 70% of what I had since the last update, and there's a good reason for that. It's a very basic reason. I want to buy a house. I'm currently renting and I'm 27. I want to buy a house by the time I'm 30 ideally, but I'm still in a situation where there's outstanding finance on things and I don't have a full deposit together. So I have sold a lot of my trains to finance this, and I hope to be moving sort of late next year, or at least looking at starting to buy a house. I have kept everything which is either really difficult to get or I've had a lot of work done to it, like these Revolution TA tankers. They've been weathered and they're incredibly rare. They're very hard to get. Same with the auto ballasters. 321s not so much, but I have had a bit of work done to that. The KUA flasks, you'll never find any of these anywhere. Nobody sells them. DB Schenker wagons by Revolution Trains have had these weathered specifically by West Coast models, and they are never leaving unless I give up the hobby altogether. New measurement train for Tendolino, my Caledonian sleeper set, which I have done the resprays on, and that's the only reason I'm keeping this set, because these resprays took a very long time and I'm really happy with them. And then I've got a few locos, just because I obviously need some locos to haul these things, like my RFD 90 and two DB Schenker locos, which have also had weathered by West Coast models. I've got to keep these two locos, of course, and anyone with these coaches will know why. The Mark 5s should be imminently arriving, and I can't wait to get them on the layout. But all of my pre-orders I still have, my Mark 5s, my Pendolinos, 313s, Class 59, all that from Revolution is all still on order. I haven't cancelled anything, but I have just sold a lot of things which either are out of region or are going to be easy to repurchase in the future. Of course, I have to keep my Virgin DVT as well, as they are rather hard to come by nowadays. So yes, I do plan on moving again, and you're probably wondering why I'm continuing on with this layout, and the main reason being, I don't know if I'm ever going to have this sort of space again, because we are looking at new builds. So obviously we're not going to rule out buying a second-hand home, but we have our heart set on a new build, and they are very small. They don't often have a lot of spare room, and they especially don't often come with garages. So I'm unsure what the future holds for my hobby, but I want to complete this layout, I want to get some good use out of it, and I want to finish it is the main thing. Because the first Great Deltan Mark 1 was never finished. I gave up after the Magna Rail because I was moving. And then the second one, which was the temporary layout, although it was more or less finished, there were still things that I wanted to do on it. So it'd be great to get this one done, have some good use out of it, and if it's good enough, potentially even get a small magazine article, like my friend Ben at Stafford Engage has recently achieved, which I have to congratulate him on, as it is a very nicely put together layout. In some ways, I do regret starting this, but at the same time, it's been good experience building this, and I have some things to show for it, which I'm really happy with. And it'll be good to look back on these videos in years to come as well. This video isn't all doom and gloom though. If in the future I don't have a space to build a layout which I'll be sufficiently happy with, I'm not going to be packing up the hobby altogether. I'm going to be doing something hopefully which I've been thinking about for quite a long time, ever since the Revolution Trains announced that they would be producing the 1938 tube stock in N gauge. Now, I have been fascinated with and somewhat obsessed with the Island line on the Isle of Wight for some time now. I visited once as a child, and I remember riding from Shanklin to Rye Pierhead on the train. I didn't think much of it back then, but the more I researched about it afterwards, the more history that I found behind it all, and the whole entire network of the Isle of Wight and all the stations that used to be there. And I just find it fascinating. It's such a small little line. It's only about 8.5 miles. It's got 8 stations, and then there's also a heritage line which branches off the main line. Most of it's single track, but it provides a commuter service for the residents of the Isle of Wight, and I just think it'd be a great thing to model, to be honest. And with the Revolution Trains announcement, that's now possible. So what I plan to do in the future is actually build an exhibition layout of either a couple of stations on the Isle of Wight Island line, or potentially all 8 stations on their own individual little module, which would then piece together to create the entire network. There'll be a scenic break between each station, and to be honest, it would just be rather good to see a train go from one station to another and stop at all the ones on the way, and then that layout, which would be obviously disassembled into modules, could then be stored in an area a lot less than what I'd need for something like this. So that's just forward thinking a long time in the future. Hopefully I have space to build another layout like this, and then I can take a lot more time on it. I can go a lot further into everything with automation, detail, but should that not fall through, I have ordered some underground train stock from Revolution Trains, so hopefully with the future I might be able to do both, but that's always a good backup plan. I'll just mention quickly that it has been pointed out on many of my videos that I either talk too quickly or my camera work is incredibly shaky, and for that I do apologise. I just get a little nervous when presenting, so I'm going to try to slow down in the future and use the tripod more often so that it doesn't give as many of you headaches, hence why this video is incredibly still and smooth, because I have had the camcorder on the tripod for the entire thing. So in terms of timescales for completion of everything, we're looking hopefully at end of June, early July for the area to be completed from that scenic break down to the M1, and that will complete that half of the layout. For this urban area, I hope to have that done by the end of the year. That's going to be a lot of scratch building, so that might take quite a while, but that's why I'm giving myself about 5 months for it. And then from early next year into the summer, we hope to be building and finishing the station, so all in all, a completion date of next summer hopefully. That will give me, oh, HST stopped. That will give me, you know, a good few months, if not a year, to have good use out of the layout and hopefully get a few pictures and videos, have some visitors around to see the layout properly. If any other channels are interested, send me a message. And then we will look into the far future of moving, and I will salvage as much as possible, but yes, a lot of it will be going into the bin. But I've had fun making it anyway. So that was all for me today. Thanks for watching. Sorry if this video is a bit of a surprise to anyone. I know that before I dismantled 2 layouts, but hopefully this one's going to be finished by the time I do that. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back again soon with the construction of the go-karting track and the rest of this scene over here. Stay safe, and bye-bye.